Ah, love. Do you like to read about romantic liaisons? Boy meets girl, girl meets girl, boy meets boy, and they all live happily ever after? Me neither. Hello there, my name is Vix. Welcome to this booktube channel called Goddess of Gore, where I like to talk about horror, thriller, sometimes fantasy and occasionally sci-fi, every week. I thought I'd stop by before I go out on my blind date and recommend a few dark thriller / horror books about what happens when obsession with another person goes too far. There's several to choose from, and my date will be here in a minute, so let's get on with it. I would first of all like to say that this is purely for entertainment, and I in no way condone any stalking behaviour towards anyone or anything, and the humour that I do make out of the books is in no way serious. This is for entertainment only, and do not put up with any bad behaviour from a significant other of any gender, and tell the police if you are a victim of crime, or at least tell someone who can help you. Now, the first book is You by Caroline Kepnes. This is a creeptastic love story told from the point of view of the stalker, a guy named Joe Goldberg. He obsesses and stalks Guinevere Beck after she walked into the bookshop where he works, following her every move on her very public social media accounts, and follows her to a bar where he knew she'd be for a chance encounter. He soon inserts himself into her life and eventually becomes her hero and then her boyfriend, using his charm and humour to win her and us over, even though he lets us know just how sick and twisted he really is. Book 2, Hexes by Charlene Ellsby. In this book we are inside the head of an unnamed woman who has been in an awful past relationship and has seemingly killed a man. Or has she? Is it all in her head? What we get is her internal monologue of her killing the same man over and over again, or several men in different ways. We're never sure. What we get as a reader is an immersive novel of gruesome murder and body horror. Book 3, Perfume by Patrick Susskind. Back in 18th century Paris, France, Jean-Paul Grunier, born with an extraordinary sense of smell to a syphilitic mother who is hanged after abandoning him. He goes about his life dwelling in the odours of the city, being feared by his fellow children, who think him a strange boy. As a grown-up, he finds the perfect job, an apprentice to a perfumer, who teaches Jean the art of mixing herbs and oils. But he doesn't stop there. Nay, he becomes obsessed with capturing rather peculiar smells, like doorknobs and wood. Then one day he finds it. The perfect smell. The smell that will drive him crazy to capture. What is the smell? Well, fresh virgins, of course. Jean finds that virgins don't want his nose in their armpits and their groins, in the delicate folds of their skin. This book climaxes with Grunier killing his virgins to really get his sniffer, his hooter, right in them. A dazzling tapestry of the obsession of odours and smells, of bodies and murder. Book 4, Penpal by Dathan Albach. This is a book of seemingly disjointed stories that follow one unnamed boy across different timelines. It all starts in his school class when they do a project by letting go of a balloon with a note to the finder telling them to write back and tell the class where the balloon was found. Most children got a reply, but this boy did not. Eventually, though, he does get a collection of photos of himself and his mother going about their days. Lots of weird and creepy things happen in this story. Murder, missing cats, disappearing and dead friends. From that one innocent request by a little boy and a balloon, what we get is a terrifying and creepy tale of a menacing stalker. Book 5, The Collector by John Fowles. This book is told in 3 parts. First, from our collector, Frederick Clegg, a lonely young man who collects and keeps butterflies. He becomes obsessed with an art student called Miranda, but is very introverted and just admires her from afar. He wins some money which he uses to buy a farmhouse. He soon gets lonely in the new house and he misses seeing the beautiful Miranda. But being the shy boy he is, he can't go and talk to her. No. He decides he will drug her and keep her in the farmhouse, in the cellar. If he keeps her long enough, maybe she will fall in love with him. The second part of the story is written in diary form by Miranda during her imprisonment. She reminisces about her former life and starts to wonder what Frederick would want with her. He has promised her he's not going to hurt her, and soon she turns her fear to pity and realises he's hopelessly in love with her. After failed escape attempts, she tries to seduce him to try and get away. This doesn't work either. It merely confuses and angers him, but he still refuses to let her go. She will stay and fall in love with him. So she starts to fantasize about killing him. She's ashamed of herself for stooping to his level. After one murder attempt, she enters a period of self-loathing. It's during this time that Miranda gets ill and dies. She dead. The book then swaps back to Frederick, who is distraught with guilt after the death of his beloved Miranda. And at first, he wants to die as well. But when he finds her diary, in which she describes her disgust of him and how she never loved him, he decides it wasn't his fault. Miranda died, and it would be for the best all round if he just went out and finds another girl to fall in love with him. Book 6, Misery by Stephen King. I'm a big fan of this one. Best-selling romance author Paul Sheldon is saved from a car crash by Annie and taken back to her house in a remote farm. Paul had suffered from severe leg injuries, which ex-nurse Annie has set with splints and given him pain relief with codeine. Now, Paul just happens to be the author of Annie's favourite novels, and she knows that he has just finished his new novel before the crash. He lets her have the honour of being the first to read it. Well, this is where it all starts to go wrong. She's not happy with the book. There's too much swearing. And for such a crime, she makes him drink soapy water to wash down his pills. Then he's killed off Misery Chastain, her favourite and main character. So she leaves him for days without pain medication. Solution? He will retype the whole novel with a better version. Obviously, Paul starts to heal over the weeks and starts nosing around Annie's house while she's out. He comes across some news clippings about Annie's old nursing life, telling how she had murdered several of her young and old patients. Annie eventually finds out he's been snooping around and decides he just doesn't need his feet anymore. As time goes on, Annie gets more and more creepy and intense. Paul concludes his reworked novel, and he and Annie live happily ever after. Obviously not. His fate gets worse and worse until the end. Full stop. Book 7, The Doll Factory by Elizabeth McNeill, a gothic, dark, historical fiction with a delightfully obsessive taxidermist named Silas. Set in 1850s London, we follow Iris, a young artist who works in a shop owned by a laudanum-addicted, cruel woman, Mrs. Slater. Iris has a wonderful job, painting the faces of dead children onto dolls day after day. She meets Silas in Hyde Park, which becomes the beginning of his desire for her. As the story goes on, Silas gets more and more obsessed. His imagination runs wild. Very wild. He visualises every moment of Iris and his encounters, sending himself mad with these fantasies. He becomes more violent and angry when he sends her invitations and she doesn't show. Creepy Silas just wants Iris to be in his own private collection. Can't you see that? 8. The Resurrectionist by Rath James White. This sick and twisted little extreme horror book isn't the greatest written book in the world, but it's the sicko we're here for, and his name is Dale. The story begins with a young Dale overhearing his parents fighting. He listens to his mother's horrible demise through the bedroom door. But Dale gives his skinned alive mother mouth to mouth. He finds he has brought her back to life and her skin is beginning to heal. What a miracle gift he has! He could heal the sick and diseased, cure mankind of all ills. Like hell he could. No, that's not what's going to happen here. This graphically detailed book goes on to explain how the troubled Dale becomes obsessed with murdering over and over again his next door neighbour. Yeah, only to bring her back to life again every time and then do the same thing again the next day. The imagination knows no bounds to the depraved and graphic ways Dale thinks to torture this poor woman. This is definitely not a book for everyone. 9. EXO by Jeffrey Denver. This is another book about an obsessed fan. It follows a singer named Kaylee who has convinced the enthusiastic fan Eddie that her hit song, Your Shadow, has been written just for him. He's been bombarding her with so many letters and emails that she has had to get her lawyers involved. But while she's out for lunch one day with a friend, he interrupts her and again he's told to back off. Later, one of the team who told him to back off is found dead. Is Edwin to blame? Has his obsession with Kaylee gone too far and he started bumping off her team? Question mark. Book 10, Creep by Jennifer Hillier. Dr. Sheila Toe is a very naughty teacher. She starts having a relationship with grad student Ethan. This lustful affair lasts 3 months and she knows she just has to stop. She's happily in a relationship with another man. But when she does try and end the affair, Ethan decides if he can't have her, then nobody else can. Ethan starts to blackmail her, threatening to end her career by posting a sex tape on the internet. Dirty girl. Ethan will not be rejected. When his threats don't work, he decides to kidnap her and force her to send texts to her fiancé to make it sound like she's left him. Totally normal behaviour, Ethan. Well done. Book 11. The Book of You by Claire Kendall. Work. A safe working environment. Your colleagues are a friendly bunch looking out for you, asking how your weekend went. No. This is a place where creeps lurk and watch you, insert themselves into your life. This is a tale of Clarissa and her creepy colleague, Rafe. He invites her to a book launch where she accepts because she just can't say no. That would be rude. She stays at the back, sipping her wine, but when she goes to leave, he won't let her. She grudgingly accepts another glass of wine and he walks her home. The rest of the night is a blur to her, but when she wakes up in the morning, Rafe is still there. Rafe is then under the impression that they're together. Clarissa is adamant that they're not. He's having none of it. He's at her work, the street, the train station, in every shop she goes in. He just won't leave her alone. So when she gets the opportunity to be on a jury, she relishes the peace and security that comes with being on a high-profile case. The disturbing case unfolding in the courtroom seems to be ringing some bells with Clarissa. The victim tells of the never-ending terror she was subjected to, so Clarissa decides she has to build a case against Rafe, her own stalker. And as she does, she realises just how bad things are. But how much worse can Rafe get? Well, Into the Darkest Corner by Elizabeth Haynes. A dark thriller about the relationship between Catherine and Lee, a handsome, charismatic and attentive man who gradually turns into a monster. He controls her, gaslights her, possesses her and downright abuses her. This book does not hold back on the violent domestic abuse Catherine suffers, but she escapes from his clutches and Lee goes to prison. 4 years on, in a new town and a new job, Catherine is trying to get over her relationship, but she has to keep checking she's locked doors and windows obsessively. And she seems to move on when she meets a new man, Stuart, until she gets a phone call and told Lee is getting out of prison. He will find her. She starts to see people in the street from her former life with Lee. Things in her house are moved while she's out. She knows he's playing with her and she's powerless to do a thing about it. Book 13, Enduring Love by Ian McEwan. Taking your significant other out for a celebratory picnic should be a joyous occasion, but for Joe and Clarissa, it is quite possibly the worst day of their lives. In a freak ballooning accident, rescuer Jed, a religious fanatic, catches sight of Joe and is instantly transfixed. He phones him up constantly. Endless letters are written. Jed is obsessed. Joe and Clarissa's marriage seems to suffer through Joe's fears of his stalker. She's not even sure Jed exists. She never met him on that fateful picnic. We find out that Jed suffers from de Clerambault's syndrome, which makes him believe that he's in love with Jed and Jed loves him too. What ensues is an increasingly more troubled future for Joe and Clarissa. Book 14, and it's hopefully the last book. SFF Seeks Same by John Lutz, later retitled Single White Female. Recently single Ali Jones, no, not Alid Jones, he's a little choir boy who likes to play with snowmen. Ali Jones, she needs a new roommate, so she places an advert in a local paper for Single White Female Seeks Same. Seems a bit racist, Ali. Hedra is the said single white woman who answers the ad and gets to move in. As time goes on, Hedra begins to idolise Ali and continues further to stalk and imitate her to the point of stealing her identity. She's completely obsessed with her. When Ali's ex-boyfriend comes back on the scene, pushing Hedra to the sidelines, she starts a campaign of terror. Ali is accosted on the street and gets strange phone calls to her home. Her roommate's constant presence instills feelings of claustrophobia and dread. The moral of the story is not to place personal ads when looking for a new roommate. This is also a 1992 film starring the brilliant actors Jennifer Jason Leigh and Bridget Fonda. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these. Do any of them sound interesting? Or do any of them sound like you? Oh dear. I'm coming, darling. I hope your February the 14th is full of frolics and fun, whether you're spending it alone, with friends or with a loved one. And remember, don't watch people from the shadows. Go and look through the window. They prefer it when they know you're watching. Until next time. Bye bye. I'm here, darling.